probably thinking, this isn't Tuesday and Thursday. No, it's not. It is Wednesday. But, screw it, right? I mean, it's a special edition of Pigskin Frenzy here on this glorious Wednesday afternoon. We have a very special guest with us, Cole Thompson from SEC Unfiltered, here in a little bit. We're going to talk to him about college football. We're fired up and we're pumped to be doing this special Wednesday edition as we get closer to kickoff on Saturday and this weekend. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Pigskin Frenzy on this beautiful Wednesday afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I'm Joel Norris. And whether you're watching on YouTube, listening on Spotify, listening on Podbean, a big thank you for taking some time out of your Wednesday to just sit back, watch and listen to some college football coverage presented by me. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, like each episode, leave comments down below. Spotify, Podbean, and Apple. Just share around with others. Follow on there as well. X and Instagram's at pigskin_frenzy. There's also the website, www.pigskinfrenzy.weebly.com. Guys, 5,300 listeners. We made that yesterday. So go back and listen to the Ghost of Texas Football episode. Great on Tuesday. And we're so thankful by you guys that we could not do this without you. We also couldn't do this without our Lord and Savior Jesus. We give him all the praise for this show because without him, we wouldn't be here. So we're fired up about this show. We're fired up about where we're headed with Pigskin Frenzy. Guys, very special guest. We did have Chris Phillips on from SEC Unfiltered about, a few weeks back, and I saw, a like and a repost, and I was like, man, Cole Thompson. And I was like, the lead football contributor from SEC Unfiltered. I was thinking in my head, we got to get him on. And we got him on. So, ladies and gentlemen, from SEC Unfiltered, the lead football contributor for SEC Unfiltered, Cole Thompson, or the Bear, as Chris Phillips calls him. Round of applause, man. Cole, how are you doing, man?
Joel, you are a delight to talk to. It's been a long day. I think that we all get through that from time to time. But when you get into an environment where somebody is excited, passionate, and they kind of bring the best version out of you, you got to deliver. So thank you for having me, dude. I'm excited to be talking. And I'm almost going to say this kind of condescendingly, but it's not to be condescending. I'm glad that we're kind of done talking and we get to actual college football.
Absolutely.
We've had a long off season. Yes, the off season does exist. I don't care what other people say. It is a down period. Now we get to ramp on up. Now we get to see the gameplay between the lines. More importantly, we get to see some really good matchups this upcoming weekend.
Absolutely. I'm fired up. And you see, now you got me fired up, man. So
there you go. See, that's what we got to do, Joel Norris. That's what we got to do.
Absolutely. I'm fired up too, man. But before we get to, week one, who's on upset alert, because we got to talk about that stuff a little bit. Let's talk about your life outside of football media. Who is Cole Thompson outside of doing this?
I ask myself that question every morning, and I still have yet to find an answer within 31 years on this planet. So now, I'm a person that just loves sports. That's been my calling card since I was a little kid. I really enjoyed growing up inside of the greater Houston area, where on Saturdays I would sit down inside of my grandfather's house in a old rickety wooden chair and I would be drinking a orange Gatorade out of a cherry Twizzler straw, and I'd just be watching college football. I mean, that was the first indoctrination of this livelihood that I've chosen for myself, was watching Brady Quinn and Tyrus Thomas and Jeff Samardzija at the University of Notre Dame. Grandfather, huge Irish fan, and I'd spend my weekends basically living on his couch, going through what was going to be the majority of my life. And, when you got into high school, when you're in Texas, you play football or you play some sport. I played football. I was, not to my own horn, decent. And then I went up against a kid that was a 5-star from Texas A&M, and I got juked and I nearly broke my ankle. And I realized, okay, the game is going to come to an end for me pretty soon. I'm not going to be playing in college. So what's the next best thing? Let's try and talk about sports. I got very lucky as a young person knowing what I wanted to do in my life. And I set a lot of goals for myself when I was 18 and I went to the University of Alabama of, these are going to be some accomplishments I want to get knocked done. And these are some things that I want to get done for my livelihood. And these are things that I hope that if I don't get this done this year, I better work twice as hard next year. And I got very lucky. I got to cover Alabama professionally for 3 years while at school. I got to be one of the top voices for our radio network, 90.7 The Capstone. And I got to have a couple of really great internships. I got to live in New York City and work for Sirius XM. I got to build a couple of relationships with guys at Mad Dog. And I graduated college, and just like everybody else, it's like you graduate, now I'm going to become the next big thing. And I worked as a production assistant at ESPN because of literally there was no shot at me getting on air at 22 years old. I was a hot shot. I thought I knew everything, and I got humbled within about a span of 24 hours of working at the very bottom of the barrel. And for a while, I bounced around. I worked for ESPN for a year. 2016 came with a lot of layoffs. did not get brought back to Monday Night Football, so had to readjust, had to rework on the fly, had to start doing my own little thing. Worked multiple jobs at a time. Sold things that I wanted to hold on to. Took nights off. Picked up extra shifts to do freelance stuff, and it was all because of I really wanted to get a career in sports, and I got very lucky in 2020 when COVID hit to find myself with a good friend. They want to pay us to do a radio show. He ended up getting promoted to a new network. He said that they needed to keep me on this network. Got my own radio show for 3 years. Got let go of the radio business, which again, it's very normal. People say all the time, well, you weren't good, that's why you got rid of you. It's like, there's a lot of things of why people get rid of you. Honestly, I say this about radio and I say this about television more than ever. If you haven't been fired, you probably haven't done your job good enough. Like that it actually is a blessing in disguise when you are fired, because usually it means they either can't afford you or you're doing something to piss them off in the right way to where you're kind of pushing the envelope and you're getting the ratings up. And it's going to be a good thing. I got back into radio about a year ago, working on the afternoon drive here in Houston, alongside with Adam Wexler and Adam Clayton. I'm their associate producer. I'm the third voice. I'm the comic relief. And lo and behold, I'm back doing traditional media while also doing new media. And I think that that's really important to realize that both communities can live together in coexistence. I know a lot of people out there talk about how old media is dwindling a little way. And it is, because there's more opportunities for new media. But there is a passion and there is a niche audience that truly does care about old media. I feel like that you can coexist in this society together. And when you build that, honestly, it opens up so many doors for both to truly expand their horizons. When we book guests, I usually don't go for the traditional journalist background. I go for the YouTuber. I go for the guy that is making the content every single day. And I do that because it allows you to build your new audience with the guys who are currently in new media. And it allows you to expand past what you currently are. Podcasting is really important. Live streaming is really important. And those are all things that I continuously tell people all the time. You got to make sure that you do that stuff. But overall, I'm a dude that loves sports. I'm a dude that's going to tell you like it is. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I may love your team a little bit more one day and then hate them the next day. But I'll tell you what, I'm going to be completely honest and authentic. And if you're not being authentic every single second of your life, you're doing things wrong.
It seems like podcasting and creating content is the way to go now in media. Am I right on that? It seems like everything is just pushing towards that. I mean, and now don't get me wrong, radio is still there, right? It just seems like podcast and radio, it seems like it's the big hit, if that makes sense, in form of media. Am I wrong on that, or?
Like I said, I think both can coexist together.
Yeah.
You don't want to get rid of old media because there still is a passion for it. There are people out there that truly do care about radio, and they do care about what is the pageantry of radio. It's an art form. It truly is something that where you learn how to create a craft and build a character and a personality. Those are things that I truly cherish, and most of the market, depending on where you live, cherishes it. With new media, the thing is that you are very lucky when people want to click on your content because of, let's just say, back right now, you and me are having a radio show.
Right.
And another person's having a radio show, and you have me on as a guest, and we'll just use an example, JD Piquel from On3 as a guest for another radio show. Well, when we're on radio together, and back in the old days when you had radio, we were competing for who was going to be the better ratings, who was going to get the better guests, who was going to get that type of content. Now you can get both content, and you can get them at the exact same time, or watch one video and go right into another video. So you have to have a good charismatic feel. You got to have a good personality when it comes to new media these days, because of anybody can do it. Anybody can build their own platform, and people will come find you, where back in the day, you found people based on what market you're in. And that's really the big difference here. But I'm always a big proponent of keeping both alive, because there is, I think, an important balance of having both old school media with radio and new school media with YouTube. And if they can coexist together, it, in my opinion, is ultimately a win, because of eventually we will all see each other kind of working in one balanced unit to build a great relationship for this new age of media where everyone can have an existing platform.
I'm surprised you didn't say golf when it came to life outside of sports media. Everybody that have been on for the past few episodes.
Dude, I hate golf.
Okay.
I hate golf. I suck. I'm awful. Like this is, people all the time are like, you look like a golfer. And I'm like, I have never broken 130. Like, I'm so bad that I am hitting double bogeys on par threes. Like I get at least 7 drops. I have gone through 3 sleeves of golf balls in 118 round.
Oof.
Like I am just, I've worked on the swing. I've watched the YouTube videos, and it's like I don't know what it is. There's something about it. I think it's like, if you ever seen the movie 51st Dates, where Lucy, she falls asleep and she forgets everything the next day. Yeah. It's like you put the club in my hand and you're telling me you can go practice it, and I'm on the range and I'm killing it. And then as soon as I step into the tee box, it's midnight, my brain shuts off, I rewire, and I go right back to swinging to the left.
I mean,
that's me.
I mean, literally for me, everybody that I've talked to the past few episodes have says, man, I love to golf. Like Tom Fornelli from CBS Sports, I had him on last Thursday. He said, man, I'm an avid golfer. I love to play golf when I'm not doing the Cover 3 podcast and doing, writing for CBS Sports. I love to golf. And I'm thinking, should I golf? Daily Joy from SEC Pretty, shout out to her. She loves golfing, and I'm thinking, do I need to golf? I'm only am good at Wii Sports golf, man. I don't know if I need to golf or not, but
I don't even think I'm good at Wii Sports golf. If that makes me feel any better. I think I'm so awful at swinging a club that I am probably going to lose every Wii golf game. That's how I am so bad that I remember I was playing Golden Tee one time, and I looked like myself playing Golden Tee, and I'm like, you know what? Golf is just not made for me. If my kid wants to learn how to play or whatever, I become a father, great. If my brother wants to take my kid out and teach him how to golf, so be it. I love to ski. I love to snowboard. I love the mountains. I love that. But I live in Texas, where it is 95 degrees 24/7. You sleep at 115 degrees. It always feels like that you're basically around Satan's you-know-what derriere. You don't need to be anywhere closer to it. To me personally, like, that's what I got at my disposal. So you got to find ways to survive. It's college football. That's basically my life.
Literally, that's me too. So, and then
chagrin to my family, but that is literally what I'm stuck with.
Literally for me too. Like, and the thing is, I agree with you. I mean, it's literally, I'm a Mississippi guy, so I'm originally from there. It is burning up down in Mississippi.
Yes, you understand it because you live near the Gulf too. Yeah. So you especially understand. We talk about heat, and Joel, I'll be completely real. I respect those out at Arizona. Yeah. I do. I respect those out in Las Vegas. Power to you. You deal with literally scorching sun at 9 in the morning, and it's 115. Let me tell you what wet heat is. Wet heat is the single worst personal thing that has ever happened in society. Wet heat makes you question life decisions.
It really does.
Wet heat makes you do things that honestly, like if you know when you see the commercial for the Snickers, you're not you when you're a Snickers. Yeah. You're not you when you step outside of Houston, Texas at 9 in the morning and you're already sweating. Like honestly, you can give me a Snickers, give me a fan, give me a Gatorade, give me something that's gonna quench my thirst and cool me down. That is as dangerous as me not being myself when I'm hungry.
Literally,
like it's that level.
It's literally like, help me, please, just help me, man. So I understand.
Don't, and I tell people this all the time. Don't look at me like that when you see me sweating in an interview. How dare you come judge me when you are not doing the dirty work of walking to your car to get into your vehicle to then walk into your studio and then still be sweating. I have to change clothes 3 times a day sometimes when it gets that bad.
Oh, man. So Cole Thompson, ladies and gentlemen, a heat rant. I mean, look, I'm glad that we got that out of him here on Pigskin Frenzy. Let's talk about...
Before we end, I just got to ask your opinion because, Joel... You respect this as a Southeastern man. You respect this as somebody that lives near the Gulf Coast.
Yeah.
August is the worst month of all the months for heat.
July and August, are the 2 worst. I would think so, yeah.
I feel like, so for me personally, the reason why I think July is okay is because I expect it to be hot.
Okay, yeah.
I expect, because it is summer, but we're getting toward the end of summer. And I have Chris Phillips sending me a text message. I have another buddy that lives out in Nashville sending me a screenshot of what his weather was going to be like this weekend while they're preparing for the college football season. And it is going to be 65 degrees. And it is going to be a low of 58 degrees. And I'm like, it is August 30th. It is going to be a high of 104. And it is going to be a low of 96. Oh, and on top of that, the heat index has it at 115. You're showing me seasons changing around the country, and here I am in this little part of America that honestly is getting hotter before it gets colder when everyone else is getting colder before it gets freezing cold. That's what makes me upset. I believe August is the worst month to live in the heat.
Man, I need to go on so shout out to my friends out in Vancouver. They're in the Red Zone Blitz podcast. They live out there, and I'm trying to figure out now if I should go on there and ask them, hey, is it get scorching hot out there? It probably doesn't, but I wonder what they go through in temperatures when it comes to like August, getting ready for football season. Because I mean, for people like me and you, we're used to it. Now I'm in Illinois now, but when I was in Mississippi, oh man, it was brutal. It was rough. I mean, just stepping outside, you're like trying to breathe, and you're like, man, think about this though. And we're going to talk about college football. I'm sorry, but think about this: when you get sick and you have a cold, on top of not being able to breathe already, it adds up, when you step outside and you're like, okay, this is just unbearable. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's just rough. So
it gets worse. There was a buddy of mine who recently had COVID and couldn't breathe already because of what was the actual disease.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you got to throw in the heat index, the sweats, the turns. He was free for 2 days, but because of how hot it was and how much he had been sweating, he didn't realize that he had tested negative. That is what we talk about when we talk about the southeastern region of the United States and the heat index.
But we do have great college football in the South.
We do have, in
the Southeastern Conference, right? So
it's 2 national championships for the Big Ten. Congratulations! Until you win a third, it's simply a coincidence.
All right, hey, and we're going to talk about that because that's a good segue. What made you fell in love with college football? I know you touched on it a little bit when you were during the intro and everything, but what made you fall in love with the sport?
My grandpa, that was his bottom line. He was always a Saturday man before he was a Sunday man. He grew up in northeast New Jersey. Big Giants fan, but he loved Notre Dame.
Yeah.
He was always invested in everything Notre Dame. He would try his best to make sure that he went to a game one year in South Bend, Indiana. Good Irish Catholic. Wanted to represent what was that culture, that branding. And when he had the opportunity, and I was old enough, he made sure that I would go with him to a Notre Dame game. But that was my first indoctrination, and I think that was where I truly fell in love with it. I remember specifically watching the 2006 Rose Bowl, where it was 2005 Rose Bowl, where Vince Young waltzes on in for a touchdown against the greatest team that was ever assembled in Pete Carroll's USC Trojans. And that was the very first time I truly remember not being on a Game Boy or focusing in on homework. It was fully fixated on that game and not having any allegiance, because I grew up in Texas, but my dad went to Indiana. My mom went to Rutgers. I don't have an allegiance to either team. I just was so drawn in and captivated that this was something that people were celebrating. And as I got older and I kept watching more national championships, whether it was LSU, Oklahoma, or it was Ohio State versus Ohio State versus Florida, there was something just about that game that constantly drew me in, to where it felt like no matter what was going on in my life, whether it was dealing with a girl or just going through growing pains or adolescent years, puberty, I had this one constant that I could always turn to and find joy in. And I think that a lot of people view college football as an experience on the weekend. To me, it's a drug. It truly is. It's an intoxicating drug that makes you feel like that you're on cloud nine when you're watching this game. And unfortunately, there comes the crash and burn at times too, when you get the withdrawals, but you keep wanting more. And it's a healthy drug in your life because if it constantly is filling you with joy, with passion, and it kind of allows you to be the most authentic version of yourself. Like for me, I'm always about making sure that when I wake up and I do a live stream or I do a podcast or I meet people, I want you to meet the real me. I want you to see who I am as a person, because I don't want to fake it. I think that when we put on our mask and we try to hide who we are as individuals, yeah, you play a character, but sometimes that character, you hide some things that people really want to see the best version of you. And I can't hide who I am when I'm watching college football. That is who I am to my core. That's what I want to be to my core. I think that just brings out the version of me that I like to show out to the rest of the world. So the more I can get at college football, the better. And it's always been just a part of my life in some capacity, turn it into a career.
Yeah. And the thing is, you said it was like a drug. And for others, it's like a religion too. Because, it's
right.
Literally on Saturdays, it's like going to church. It's like, okay, I got to get up, watch College Game Day. By the way, just take a moment of silence. Dude, shout out to the great Lee Corso. We're going to shout him out because, man, he is a legend. Final College Game Day. Make sure everyone's up for that one in Columbus, Ohio. We're going to watch that one. But it's literally like watch game day, then watch, okay, what's on? If you're Central Time or Eastern or whatever, 11 a.m., right? Then you go to 2:30, then you go to 6:30, and then, it's literally just all day Saturday, and you just feel alive, if that makes sense. So, I mean, I completely understand when you said it was like a drug or a religion. I mean, it really is. There's
Either or. I mean, you build your life around it.
Yeah.
You build times around it. You tell people that you can't go to certain events because of X game is on and you have to be there. It's a requirement. It's a daily reading. It's a daily assignment, and it's a beauty. It truly is. It's something that I think that everybody can kind of take in, and it's also, I think it's a good watering hole because of everybody may not like college football, but everybody can understand college football, and I think that everybody can find an appreciation for college football.
I call it the greatest sport on earth because to me, there's nothing like it.
I mean, there's nothing like
Yeah.
it. You know, people all the time, and it's been great to be able to meet people around the world. There have been people who watch Premier League and are huge into soccer and into rugby. And if you ever go down to Australia or New Zealand, rugby is a religion down there. It's like the way they talk about it is the way we talk about college football. Those international people have an appreciation to the big time rivalries. They understand that we may not have the same type of game, but we have the same type of passion. And ultimately, that's what brings us together better as an entire world and a community. And that's something that I think you can appreciate.
You talked about the SEC, and you talked about there's nothing like it. You know how the Big Ten has two, third, two is a coincidence. Three would be okay. We're on to something. But you talked about the SEC. You work with Chris Phillips with SEC Unfiltered. Talk about what that's like and what's been like. Just being a part of a crew with Chris Phillips, just producing great content about SEC ball.
I think it's just a good avenue to where we can be our most authentic selves and talk about a sport that we care about. Chris and I found each other about 2 years ago, and we built a good friendship. And I think that the biggest thing is that we've been able to bounce ideas off of each other where we don't overstep each other's boundaries. And we make sure that we stay outside of our comfort zones, but we also get to be a version of ourselves that people gravitate towards. Like when people listen to me and they talk about the Bear being an overexcited, overzealous guy, Chris doesn't tell me, reel it back in. He gives me the confidence to say, no, give it more. What else you got left in the tank? And it's a good pairing because of Chris sometimes can be a little bit too pessimistic, and I can be a little bit too optimistic. So in the great words of the Iliad, when you talk about Icarus flew too close to the sun and somebody had to bring him down before he melted. That's me and Chris, is that we have a good dynamic. We have a good pairing of he's willing to kind of be the bad guy. I'm willing to be the good cop and bring you back in and shower you with approval, but understand the second that I have to be completely honest, I'm willing to turn it on for you. And I think that that's kind of been a blessing. We've been able to build great relationships with fan bases. It's actually been really interesting over the last year and a half as we grew the channel to where it is now. Recently, I was out with my wife for dinner one night, and I was wearing the SEC Unfiltered hat, and somebody tapped me on the shoulder and goes, Cole Thompson? And I was like, yeah. He's like, my name is Daryl. Watch the show. You guys are great. And I think it's just like a rewarding feeling of you never know who's watching. You never know where they're watching. You got to be on at all times. But you've done enough to where people are paying attention to you.
Right.
And that's another blessing in disguise to where it makes you want to work harder. Chris and I, when we were out at, we were recently in the SEC documentary, and how many people reached into my reached into my phone and reached onto my Instagram page and just, kind of tagged me and said, I'm so proud of you. I know we haven't talked in a while, but it's good to see the way that you're working. There's two ways to look at it. There is a, I made it moment, and there's the, well, where do I go from here moment? I think that both Chris and I have a great understanding of, we're glad that we made it to this moment. People are paying attention. We're doing something that is awesome, and we're doing something that we love, and we truly enjoy making this type of content. But where do we go from here? What's next? And when you have somebody that also is in that same mindset as you, it's very hard to bring you down. When you have somebody that is willing to push you and you're willing to push them, and they don't feel like they're asking too much of you. They just know that there's more than meets the eye. There's more that we can do to be better. You get so hungry for an opportunity to continue to build your platform.
You mentioned the Bear nickname. Where did you get that nickname from? Like, who gave you that?
This is okay. So what happened is we had a third guy named Dave Shoemate. We love Dave, and Dave, we wish him the best. He recently got an offer that he couldn't turn down, and honestly, I would have kicked his ass if he didn't turn it down, because if he's made for this type of stuff. But he joined us last year, and we were a 3-man show before we became the duo. And Dave always like to come up with little tidbits and nicknames because he has a 1-year-old. And so with the 1-year-old, he's trying to teach them like certain little things. And so my name is Cole, and apparently he thought of Polar Bear because of polar bear. And he was talking with his son one day about the polar bear. So he kept calling me Polar Bear into the video. And I was like, what are you doing with the Polar Bear? It's like, oh, well, you're just a Polar Bear. And I'm like, I don't really like that. So how about just bear? And I'm like, I guess, whatever. And he started calling it in the group chat. And other people around the group that we have started saying, hey, there's the bear. And eventually I was just like, if the name sticks and you guys like it, doesn't bother me, screw it. I mean, I'm not going to tell Chris Facilla that you and I are now splitting the name. You're going to have to now pay me for the rights to use my name because of more people call me Bear than they call probably you Bear. But Dave Shoemate called me Polar Bear, and I told him no. And he said, all right, how about just Bear? Didn't really think anything of it. And now it's just stuck. And that's just what most people call me, and that's when they put it in the group chat.
Yeah, so I'm glad you told me that story, because when I was posting on X and Instagram and hyping up and just promoting this episode for the special Wednesday edition of the show, I just saw bear emojis from Chris Phillips, and I was sitting there like, what does that mean? I didn't know what it meant. So I'm glad you told me that. That was pretty unique. Do you like the nickname, or are y'all going to create SEC Unfiltered Bear shirts, or?
Listen, if Chris is going to go out of his way to make a t-shirt with a bear that has a backwards hat, I will make sure that it properly sells. The backwards hat thing for me, and I know that some people just don't like it, I don't look good in a forwards hat. I'll show you. Like, for me, when I wear the forwards hat, my face feels too fat. My face feels like it's a little bit too far out there, and it doesn't look good for camera. And I like to grow out my hair before I cut it. I usually try to save money some ways, and one way is just letting the hair grow until it can't anymore. But when you flip the hat backwards, and you can cover the hair behind, face feels a little bit more sleek, you feel a little bit more professional, you feel like that you're doing something. So, if he makes a backwards hat with a bear with a backwards hat, so be it. And the Thompson Tech Red Wolves will welcome that as our honorary mascot, which, by the way, is the team that I created on College Football 26, Thompson Tech Red Wolves. So, I would love to get shirts made like that, and that would be part of SEC Unfiltered.
And I mean, you look slick, you look cool with the backwards hat too. It's your thing, man.
I appreciate it.
It's your thing, man. Let's talk about some college football. We'll wrap up everything. Week 1's upon us, man. We're here. I mean, aren't you excited? I mean, we're here. Like,
of course.
Literally, it's in my veins. Like, I'm pumped up. I got chills looking at this schedule. I got chills looking at me. We can talk about Friday. We can talk about Saturday, Sunday, what have you, Monday, even with North Carolina TCU. But let's talk about who's on upset alert in week 1. What's that one game that you see, okay, this has upset alert written all over it?
Ooh.
Or multiple. If you want to do multiple, that's up to you too.
Well, I mean, so it's an upset because of the spread, but it's not, in my opinion, an upset. I think Baylor beats Auburn. I think Baylor beats Auburn soundly. If you know anything about McLean Stadium, it is one of the more, I would say, hostile environments in college football in the Big 12. Now, it only sits about 45,000, which doesn't feel like a lot, because it isn't. But the way that sound carries and the reverb, the way that they built the roof to where it has this small little exit way, it comes back down and it shakes the entire stadium. McLean Stadium is one of the hidden jewels of, I think, the state of Texas. And if you have the opportunity to go to a game out there, I highly recommend it. It doesn't have to be a high-profile game. It could be Baylor versus Tarleton State. You still will feel what that atmosphere is like. I think that Baylor last season was one of the more underappreciated offenses in college football down the stretch. You bring in Sawyer Robertson. He finds his footing by about mid-October, and they proceed to average 38.2 points per game. Bryson Washington was the number 1 running back from week 6 on. Josh Cameron was a phenomenal wide receiver 1. And they ended up going 8-4, and they really kind of reset the tone of this program that had been heralded as a rising sensation underneath Dave Aranda for what he did in his second season by taking them to the Big 12 title and winning that game and knocking Oklahoma State out of the college football playoff. Dave Aranda fixed the defense this offseason. I've talked to some people out in Waco. They really feel confident that an entire year, a couple of extra additions to the portal, how much that they've been willing to spend in NIL to land players that they covet has been massively beneficial. And the offense is a veteran unit. I think that speaks incredible volume of the continuity to be able to feel like that you're not going to miss a beat. They brought in Kobe Prentice from Alabama. They still have Ashton Hawkins, who was phenomenal coming on in from Texas State last year. You got the eligibility waiver. You still have Michael Trigg that was finding his footing late in the stretch last season. He was at Ole Miss forever. You still have Josh Cameron. You still have Bryson Washington. You have 4 starters on the offensive line that returned from last year and a 5th guy that played 4 games with the starting unit. So it's very hard for me to say that if you look at where Auburn is, new quarterback, some new weapons, some new offensive personnel, you don't have the same running back room as you had last season with Jarquez Hunter, which again, Hugh Freeze, somehow, someway, Auburn coaches in their second year waste a great running back. It happened with Tanks Bigsby. It happened with Jarquez Hunter. Whoever's going to be the next Auburn coach at this point, I'm assuming in year 2, they're going to have like an All-American, and he's going to get 800 rushing yards, when he should be the bell cow of your offense and the entire identity built around you. But you don't have that anymore. You have a good defense, but you are going up against a great quarterback. I just feel like all of the things are stacked up against you to where you're not going to be able to win this game. And because of how much pressure Hugh Freeze is under, I feel like that he is going to be the one that makes a mistake with the play design and the play call that ultimately leads to a scoring drive for Baylor that will come on in and they'll get the win at home. So I think that that's an upset. But it's not an upset because a lot of people are picking that game.
Yeah.
It is, but the spread says it is an upset.
Right. And the thing is, it's so unfortunate that you said that because Auburn really needs this win. Don't you think? Hugh Freeze specifically needs this win, I think. I don't know, man. Because I'm so conflicted with Auburn, if that makes sense. I want to pick them to beat Baylor, but it's kind of hard because Sawyer Robinson in that offense is really, really good. So,
what I would say is that Brian Kelly needs a win in week 1 more than anybody else just because of what the standard is at LSU.
Right.
And because of how long it has been since LSU has not won a week 1 game. I mean, we got to go back to the national championship year in 2019. But for anybody that just wants to silence the doubters and get back to football, Hugh Freeze needs this win. I mean, Joel, if you look at the offseason that Auburn has had, they've gone from, in the last 30 days, people talking about Hugh Freeze's golf game, to the inconsistency at the quarterback position, to we have 3 offensive play callers, 1 on first down, 1 on second down, 1 on third down, but the guy on third down can veto the call on first or second down, to then we're going into a new deal with our jersey schemes. We have an injury at our wide receiver. Oh, by the way, just to go ahead and throw this on, we're going to claim 6 national titles out of the blue because we can do that in 2025. Oh, and just to go ahead and add more insult to injury on what this team is, to take your eyes away from what's going on currently on the field, we're going to retire Cam Newton's number and we're going to continue to live in the past. There's been so much stuff around Auburn just to get on the football field and show that the program is trending in the right direction. Auburn fans need that. If there's a team that I would say just needs Friday to get here, Auburn is that team.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of teams out there that I think would love to see their roster end up living up to expectations. But just we're so tired of hearing about the offseason and stuff that surrounds this. Can we please just put the ball in the middle of the turf and go to business? It's Auburn. Auburn needs this game to happen, and they need the win because they really need to just set the tone for what is going to be an imperial year for this program.
They have a shot at being the most roasted team this season, too. I mean, Jackson Arnold has an NIL deal with Dude Wipes, for crying out loud.
The drugs write themselves.
Literally, if they start losing these ball games, there's going to be a lot of memes happening within the Auburn program, and I don't like that. Because it's fun to watch an Iron Bowl when Auburn is ranked, good, and on fire, ready to compete. I mean, don't you think? I mean, I believe that Auburn in general it's really good for college football in the SEC when Auburn is better. And actually, they're competing, they're fired up, and they're ready to go win 9 to 10 games. So, I don't know.
Any single time that the game is at Jordan-Hare, it is fantastic.
Right.
There's something about, and I've said this before, I truly believe, and I have this on good record, that there was a voodoo shaman man that one day back in the 1800s passed away, and his body seeped into the ground and convinced settlers to go ahead and build a stadium that was later known as Jordan-Hare. And once a year, that voodoo shaman man magic seeps into the soil, and chaos occurs at Jordan-Hare. And it usually happens in a primetime moment. Last season, Texas A&M, look at them. They win that game. They maybe finish the year 9-3. They certainly are in the hunt for the college football playoff. They beat Texas. They feel content that maybe this is a year where Mike Elko breaks the streak of the 8-4 jokes, and 4 overtimes later, they find a way to get that win. Now this season, they get Georgia at home. They also get Alabama at home. And there have been times where Alabama has made the most impressive play. Remember, the last 2 times that Alabama has played at Auburn, you had a 4 overtime game, and John Mechie with the 2-point conversion, flying crane, and then you had the Jalen Waddle 4th and 31. So, regardless of how the game goes, it's going to be chaos.
Right.
It simply is going to be chaos. And that is where the beauty is, and I think, of this matchup. I do agree with you. When Auburn is good, and this game has some validity to it for SEC championship appearances, potentially college football playoff berth, there's a lot of things that make this game that much better, but it's the fact that it's at Jordan-Hare. When the game is at Bryant-Denny Stadium, and I can say this as an Alabama grad, they're fine games.
All right.
But when you go to Jordan-Hare, it doesn't matter if they're 0-11. That game is going to end with a little bit of psychoticness. It just is, because the Shaman Man is not going to allow this game to be an easy breeze. He's just not. He will have his voodoo magic seep on in to guarantee that chaos occurs at Jordan-Hare.
And I'm glad you brought that up. Really quick, Iron in the Blood, out now, all wherever books are sold. I had Jay Busby from Yahoo Sports on the show. Special friend to the show now. He wrote the book. It's about the Iron Bowl, the history of it. Go and read it. Wherever books are sold. We had him on. We talked about it. Go back and listen to that episode as well. Upset alert. Let's talk about one game before we move on and conclude with overrated and underrated teams heading into 2025. What about Tennessee-Syracuse? What do you see on that one? A lot of people have been, picking Tennessee to win that game, but do you think that Syracuse has a shot?
I think if Syracuse had more time to figure out what Steve Angeli was, this would be a closer game. Yeah. The beauty is that we don't know what Joey Aguilar is either. So if you are Syracuse, you feel like that a quarterback that last season threw double the amount of interceptions that he threw in his first year in the Sun Belt, maybe you can bait him into making a mistake. And if Angeli and this passing attack, which, by the way, I think is going to be very good at the end of the year. I like the addition of Jonte Cook because I like that Fran Brown is one of these coaches that will not put up with any nonsense. Cook dealt with some things in the offseason. He dealt with multiple issues off the field. Fran Brown did not need to take him on. And he said, you know what? This is a guy that I truly believe is going to make our program better. But if he slips up, he's not my problem anymore. Best of luck to you in your future endeavors. And it's been, I think, a blessing for Jonte Cook as he realizes this is a major institution in a great situation that has a coach that truly does believe in him. I think that you're going to get the best version out of him. And then they also have a couple of other wide receivers, Darren Gill being one, that I truly think is going to hit his stride in this Jeff Nixon offense because you have a quarterback that works. I just don't know if it's all going to come together in week one. Yeah. Like the way I feel about the Texas-Ohio State game, and I've said this on multiple podcasts, if this was played in week 4, if this was played in week 6, or better yet, this was played at the end of the year, I think Ohio State wins by 10. But because of how much unknown you have with coordinators and playmakers and a quarterback and a revamped defense, and it's certainly you're going up against one of the better teams and one of the better defenses in the country, it just feels like the deck is stacked against Ohio State to where if they make one critical mistake, they're going to end up losing this game. And that's kind of how I feel about Syracuse. Syracuse has a very challenging schedule. They lost a lot defensively. They did a good job of backportaling in a lot of talent, and they have a coach that beats to his own drum and is not afraid to be the most authentic version of himself, which works. And in my opinion, he's become the most underappreciated coach in college football, and certainly is the biggest riser from last season. Because I don't know how many people knew who Fran Brown was. I think a lot of people would have Fran Brown on the short list of names for a coach that I want to hire to build my program around in the future, just for what he did last season and what he's going to continue to do. But I just feel like I know more about what Tennessee is. I like what I've heard about their offensive line. They're going to go back to being an offense that isn't predicated on one-dimensional play. And I don't mean that to be disrespectful to Nico. I don't mean to be disrespectful to what Dylan Sampson was. But you remember that team in 2022. Right. They ran the football with 3 guys, Jalen Wright, Jabari Small, and Dylan Sampson.
They did.
All 3 of them finished with over 400 rushing yards. Last season, you didn't have that. You just had Dylan Sampson basically being your offense. You're going to have that this year with Peyton Lewis, Deshaun Bishop, Star Thomas. So you get to spread the ball around a little bit more. You get to put an emphasis on what's a strength for our team. Is it working to the outside against this defense? That's what we call Deshaun Bishop. Is it playing in between the trenches on short yardage situations to step up the passing attack? That's Star Thomas. The defense, I don't think is going to be as elite as it was last year just because of the depth purposes. You lost a lot to the NFL draft. But it still is a good defense, and you still have a good coordinator in Tim Banks running the show. So I don't think that they're going to fall off that much. If this game was played week 3, absolutely I could see the upset. I don't see the upset simply because of what we know about Tennessee and what we don't know about Syracuse, which also could be very dangerous for Tennessee and a very big blessing for Syracuse. But I just don't see it.
Right. And the thing is, I totally agree. I don't think it's going to happen. It's not going to be a pigskin game, so I can pick it right now outright on this episode. But I think Tennessee will win the game. I think they will. I think it's going to be closer. Let me just put it this way. I don't think it's going to be 13.5. I think it's going to be at least by 10. I'll say Tennessee wins by 10. I think Syracuse keeps it a little bit more manageable. But I just don't really see Tennessee getting to 13.5. I mean, I may be wrong. I may be a total, like, this guy's, high off his horse. He didn't know what he's talking about, but I just think that Syracuse is going to at least manage to keep it respectable within the 7 to 10 point range. I don't think it's going to at least go to 14 points, at least.
I could see it with a late touchdown that would just beat the spread.
Yeah.
But I do think for the first, if you told me the first half that we're going into Mercedes-Benz Stadium, 30 minutes left on the clock, and it was a 14-7 game, I could buy into it.
Yeah.
Or I could even buy into a 20-17 game. I could. And I could even buy into Syracuse jumps out to an early 10-0 lead, and we're watching as we have to see Tennessee kind of fight its way back. I could see that. I just think that when you get down to the nitty-gritty fourth quarter, 15 minutes, which team is going to make the fewer mistakes? That's Tennessee.
Yeah, that's true. And I think their defense is still going to be good too, so we got to watch. So Syracuse has got to watch out for that. This coming up Saturday as well. Real quick, and we'll wrap up everything. Who is overrated and underrated heading into the 2025 season? From each Power 4 conference, we can start with the SEC, or if you want to start with something else, I'll let you pick because you are our guest today.
I don't really know. Okay, so here's the problem with the SEC.
Okay.
I don't know if I can go overrated.
All
Because
right.
it also depends on what you think is overrated. So, like, who is your overrated team, just out of curiosity?
So I said yesterday on the Ghost of Texas Football episode, go back and watch that one, plug there. I said Florida, and I'll tell you why Florida.
Okay.
I think Florida does have a hard schedule, yes, and they are going to be good. Now, hear me out, guys, before everyone tries to kill me. They're going to be good. I just think overrated in terms of, okay, their O-line has a lot of questions. I think that's the questionable factor of their O-line. And then I'm going to say this one that a lot of people probably are afraid to talk about, DJ Lagway getting hurt. I am afraid of him.
No,
yeah,
you're right.
I think he's a good quarterback and he's talented. When he's on, dude, Lagway's one of the best. It's just the injuries. So I think overrated for me is Florida. I think they're going to be good, but I think they're going to be a little bit overhyped, if that makes sense.
I feel that way about Oklahoma, if being completely honest.
Yeah.
And it's not that I feel like that Oklahoma is overrated, because I don't. I think that they're a very properly rated 8-4, 9-3 team. But I hear the way that some people talk about what needs to happen for Brent Venables to save his job. And I also want to make sure that people look at the schedule. They could very well be 5-0 going into Red River. They could get a win over Texas. And I know you had Ghost on yesterday. Ghost, a good dude. But also, he knows as well as I do, this is a rivalry game. This is a game that is played in a neutral site field that is perfectly split down the middle between the Crimson and Cream and the Burnt Orange and White. And it's an away game for 30 minutes. It's a home game for another 30 minutes on both sides, which means anything and everything can happen in this game. You could get the upset. You could be sitting at 6-0, and you're on cloud nine if you're an Oklahoma fan. And then I have to hold your hand, and I have to turn you into the direction that is the second half of the season, where you still have to face off against South Carolina on the road. You still got to go to Alabama. You still have to play against Missouri that we don't know anything about. You still have to face off against LSU. You still have to face off against two other teams. You still have to welcome in Ole Miss. Like, there's a bunch of things that could easily go wrong to where, yeah, you're sitting at 6-0 and you finish the year 7-5. It's one of those schedules to where I don't know what I'm getting entirely in this offense. I don't know what I'm getting entirely in this defense. I believe that they are going to be a good team, a very solid 8-4, and enough to say that you're trending upward. And if you can keep John Mateer around for another year, and Ben Arbuckle isn't going to be an offense coordinator elsewhere, and you have a good foundation in place for 2026, you're going to be in the playoff hunt. Because your schedule also is going to change and be much more manageable for you. But this is not the year to where it's like, I see people saying 10-2, 11-1.
Yeah.
John Mateer for the Heisman Trophy. It's like, maybe, but you are going to have to look elite in a lot of other areas that I just don't see on the roster right now.
There's a lot of people who don't see the Oklahoma hype. So, I mean, and the thing is, I can understand it. You know, I can understand, especially after you talked about it just a minute ago. That was a really good take on that. So, for me, underrated would be A&M. I think Texas A&M's got a really good roster. The only question I have is just, this is kind of weird to put it this way, but depth. On the O-line, especially on the O-line. I think that is a concern. I mean, their O-line's going to be good. Don't get me wrong. I worry about the depth a little bit because they, especially against Texas late in the last time, later last year, when they faced off against Texas, they had a lot of concerns on that. They were getting, beat in the line of scrimmage last year. And I want to see, okay, is that resolved? Are they going to be a lot better and win some of those closer games down the stretch this season? I think A&M's going to be an underrated team for me.
I am very high on Austin Simmons at Ole Miss.
Okay.
I think that he is going to be one of the best players by the season's end. And I'm not saying in the SEC, I'm saying in college football. I love Austin Simmons. I think that he is going to be exactly what is needed for this offense to take flight. But to me, it's the Lane Kiffin theory. And my theory is, in years that you expect him to do big things, he's not going to meet the expectations. They went to the Sugar Bowl. They had a 10-win season. They go 8-5 the following year with Jackson Dart as their starting quarterback after losing Matt Corral. They then have no expectations going into 2023. There was so much not expectations that, remember, they bring in Spencer Sanders from Oklahoma State to compete with Jackson Dart for the starting role. A guy who was a first-round pick and ultimately an all-SEC type of quarterback. But they brought him in to compete. They brought in this wide receiver from Louisiana Tech. They brought in a bunch of transfers that they thought were going to hit and whatnot. And they proceeded to win 73-0 against Mercer. And that was the signal call for an 11-win season, the first one in program history. There was no expectations. The next year, there's expectations. The last dance, they end up going 10-3. Good year at Ole Miss. Not a good year for what you expect with how much you spent. So a part of me just feels like that Ole Miss with their schedule very well could be 6-0 going into that matchup against LSU, and then 7-0 after that game because you get to welcome an LSU and get revenge for what happened last season. If your quarterback hits, the wide receivers are all really promising, the offensive line doesn't hit that big of a snag, and the defense is sustainable. Not elite like it was last year. Their schedule is so manageable to where they could easily find their way into a 9-10 win season and be that sleeper for the college football playoff. And again, it's the most Lane Kiffin thing. I'm going to spend millions and millions of dollars and mess it up at the very last second because I'm Lane Kiffin, and in a year I don't have any expectations from the public eye. I'm going to go to Atlanta. I'm going to be 11-1. We're going to get a first-round bye. We're going to win a national championship. Like, that is just the epitome of Lane Kiffin, in my opinion. Like, nobody is saying a thing about Ole Miss. Whatever they do this year, he's built enough equity to get away with it. They can go 2-10, and there's nobody in Oxford going to say, we got to fire Lane Kiffin. Nobody's going to do that. And I think that's what makes Ole Miss so dangerous going into this season.
The funny thing that you mentioned is when they are hyped, they end up losing a game that they're not supposed to lose.
Right.
And it's
like, you should have never lost to Kentucky.
Or Florida.
Like, that was so you see the Florida game, I had my trepidation on because of what happened the week before with LSU.
Yeah.
But you're right. You were leading that game, and then somehow, someway, your quarterback that is en route to go into the Big Apple for a Heisman Trophy presentation, he's not going to win the award, but he could at least be invited. He'd be the first quarterback since Eli to go to that event. He ends up going down his leg. He ends up just looking like a 6-month-old puppy that had to sleep inside for 14 hours inside the crate at the 1-yard line. It's like, you can't have that happen. He had two interceptions after having 2 interceptions called back.
Literally.
Like, that's literally what happens, and that is the Lane Kiffin theory. There's no expectations this year, so therefore they're going to be good.
Literally, that's like, all right, God is telling you guys, okay, you're going to lose this ball game. You are definitely going to lose this game today. I mean, you had 2 interceptions called back. You're going to throw 2 more. You got to lose this ball game. Let's go to the Big Ten really quick. Big Ten, overrated and underrated.
I think overrated just because the way the fan base is talking about them is Michigan.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that Michigan is not going to be a bad team. I think Michigan's going to be 8-4. But I just wonder, how quickly are you going to get your quarterback in Bryce Underwood to meet all the expectations and be really more than just a facilitator of the football? He's got to be pretty much one of the more complete players in the sport. And then you realize their schedule, it doesn't do them any favors.
Yep.
You got to play in week 2 against a Brent Venables-led defense. Then in week 4, without your coach, because if he's going to be suspended for that game, you get to go to Nebraska. You then get to travel on the road 2 weeks later to USC. And we don't know what USC is going to be this year. They may end up being one of the better teams in the Big Ten. You have Washington. Washington is a really sneaky team. I think that Maryland, late game of the year, look ahead spot for what is Ohio State, and then the Ohio State game. So even with all of those matchups, 8-4 is a good year. But the way that Michigan fans talk about it, it's we have got to be in that 10-2 range. We're going to be in the college football playoff. Our defense is not going to miss a beat. We're all going to be put together in a spot to where everything is going to be trending forward for us. And I just don't see it.
Yeah.
I think that they're a good foundation. I think there's a lot to like about what you have with Sharon Moore and how they've attacked the portal. But I just feel like there are 3 or more games that they are going to be the underdog in, and they're going to be the underdog not because of they're playing on the road, but because the other team is better than them.
That's a good pick, and I'm glad that you would. Man, I'm gonna have Cole back on here more. This is awesome, man. He's literally breaking it down. It's like, man, we got to get back on him on here a bit more, man. Let's talk about Washington, because I think Washington to me is an underrated team. And then I'll go with an overrated in a minute, and then we'll cut it off. But underrated is Washington. I think depth-wise, yeah, I think that's maybe an issue. But if they stay healthy, they can be a really, really good football team. Damon Williams at quarterback, Denzel Boston rather at wide receiver. I think Jonah Coleman at running back. They can be an electrifying team if they just remain healthy. I think overrated is Oregon. I think Dante Moore at quarterback can be really good for them. He hadn't really started the full season yet. We got to wait and see how he is. I think the O-line, to me, it has a little bit of question marks, too. So give me Oregon at overrated. But, I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's literally all I got for the Big Ten. I just think Oregon's a team that you can watch out for. And I had number 3 in my conference standing projections for Big Ten, but I don't know. I still think that they can be – they could lose 3 to 4 games and lose a game you're not expecting them to lose.
I will come on your show whenever you ask me, because if you said the magic word of underrated and Washington in the same sentence, that is the right answer. I think that's far and away the right answer. In fact, I recently saw a couple people put Washington in their playoff, and I had to privately text them and go, I'm mad at you. And they didn't understand why. And I said, because if you were bolder than me to put them in when I had them on the outside looking in. Washington and South Carolina were my first 2 out in my college football playoff standings. I gave the nod to Georgia Tech, and if we talk about the ACC, I'll explain why. But I truly think that Washington, their offense this year is going to remind me so much of what we saw in 2023 down at Arizona with Noah Fafita.
Yeah.
Damon Williams is Noah Fafita 2.0, except he's better.
Yeah.
He is more elusive. He is more athletic. He has the exact same frame. They both stand 5'11". They're both under 195 pounds. And they both are going to trust a big-bodied wide receiver to be that X factor, along with a secondary option that knows how to move the chains into the slot. For Washington, it's going to be Denzel Boston, and it's going to be Omari Evans that comes on in from Penn State. For Nova Fida, it was Tet McMillan, and it was Jacob Cowing who was running in the slot. They are a slew of defensive players from that standout team at Arizona in 2023, now on Washington's roster in 2025, including Jacob Manu, the linebacker, and Takario Davis, the cornerback. They also have, in my opinion, the most underappreciated running back in college football in Jonah Coleman, who is awesome. He is great in the open field. We do not talk about him enough in the lore of running backs. I think he is top 10. But then their schedule is the reason why I think that they are the most underrated team. You don't have to play in the shoe. You get to welcome Ohio State from the shoe. You get to welcome in Illinois, who could be a team that ends up getting to 10 wins. You get to welcome in Oregon to close out the year. So your biggest games outside of the Michigan matchup are all in your backyard. And if you know anything about Husky Stadium, it is one of the most ravenous, toxic, and best of all, hostilely loud environments in the sport that benefits you. So a lot of the things that you look for in small little details that could swing a game in your momentum and in your favor, it leans in favor of Washington. I think that they're a 9-13 this year. I think they're going to miss the playoffs, but they're a 9-3 team,
Absolutely.
which is a massive upgrade from what they were a season ago.
And have a shot at the Citrus Bowl. That'd be a good. That'd be a Citrus Bowl team right there. Let's go to the ACC because you mentioned it, and you get me fired up now talking about it. Underrated. Obviously, you're going to say Georgia Tech. I think Georgia Tech's going to go to the ACC championship game. I love Georgia Tech. I love what Buster Faulkner does for that offense. I say it time and time again. A lot of people are sleeping there. And someone said, who's the sneakiest team in the college football playoff or who could make the college football playoff? It was Jake Crane who said that. Shout out to Jake Crane. I said Georgia freaking Tech because I think the Yellow Jackets are going to be a really good team. Underrated for me, NC State. I think that CJ Bailey is going to be a really, really good quarterback. I don't think a lot of people are talking about him that much. I think Justin Jolly is a very underrated tight end and a good pass catcher for him. So give me NC State. I like what they're doing with the line of trenches as well with the O-line and D-line. And I think overrated is going to be Miami. I just...
So you do think Miami's overrated?
Yeah, I think Miami's going to be overrated. I'm not seeing a lot of what the hype is around Miami. It sounds kind of weird to say it that way. I just don't know if Carson Beck has what it takes to be that 2023 Carson Beck that we saw then at Georgia. But he also had Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers with him. So is he going to be that guy in 2023? I don't know. I don't really know. But Miami to me is pretty much my overrated team for the ACC. But I'll start with you. You can lead with you or whatever. Go ahead. Tell us why Georgia Tech is one of your teams. That got me really excited.
So I just don't think Georgia Tech's underrated or overrated. I think they're properly rated because of I have them in the playoff. I am one of those that do believe that they will get the win over Clemson, and because they get the win over Clemson, they will then be able to say, we have a win over a conference champion that gives us the nod over a 9-3 team from the Big Ten or from the SEC. My underrated team is Duke. And I think that Duke is there because of, if you're paying $4 million for a quarterback, he better be special.
Right.
And to be completely honest, Darian Mensah, in my opinion, is special.
Yep.
I think that Darian Mensah, what we saw from him last season at Tulane was just the tip of the iceberg. And he's going to be playing in a bigger program. I think he's going to be playing in an offense that is a better fit for him and allows him to stay more mobile and move outside the pocket. I think that they're added in some really underrated weapons that we aren't talking enough about, and their offensive line returns 4 starters. So there is an opportunity for them in week 2 to get a massive win against Illinois and put themselves on the map. That game is going to be in Durham. It's going to be on Friday night. It's going to be a standalone matchup. There's a lot of optimism that ends up being a game that we talk about as a turning point for the Blue Devils with Manny Diaz. And Manny Diaz is a very good defensive coordinator. He is a very stoic mind on knowing what is supposed to work and what doesn't. He doesn't try to overcompensate things, and he doesn't try to overcorrect. He allows people to make mistakes and then learns from it in the process. So I think Duke is going to be in that range of that 9-3. I also think that Pitt's a team that we need to talk a little bit more about. Schedule, again, at the very end of the year is very manageable for them to have those home games and pull off a few upsets. I say this not because of I'm bitter, but I'm bitter. I'm a little salty. So they are overrated to me. It's Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
Virginia Tech last season, I had in the college football playoff. I thought that they were going to be one of the more complete teams. I liked what they did in the portal. They didn't do much, but what they did do was very promising. They had the most returning production in college football. They had a quarterback that was hitting his stride late in 2023, and everything just felt like it was coming together for Brent Pry. And I had a massive amount of respect for Brent Pry. They went 6-6. They barely made it to a bowl game. They looked dreadful in the bowl game. They went and they fired both the coordinators. They redid the entire offensive personnel and defensive personnel. And I just am like, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, I'm not that big of an idiot. So I think that this is going to be a very underwhelming Virginia Tech team. A lot of people are saying I like the spot where they're going in this weekend, Sunday afternoon, standalone game against South Carolina. That maybe is a little bit overrated. I think that we're going to see exactly who Virginia Tech is. And they're going to be with their backs against the wall early on in the season if they don't win against the 2 SEC teams. Because remember, they come home and they welcome in Vanderbilt. But then right after that, they welcome in Old Dominion. And Old Dominion, they're not this team that you're going to worry about being the G5 rep for the college football playoff, but they're scrappy. Like, they are a very intriguing team because of the way that they're coached. They might be able to pull off an upset or at least make that thing close. And if you start off 0-3, I mean, at that point, you got to fire out the resume if you're Brent Pry and start looking elsewhere.
Yeah. And I agree with that. I was going to say Brent Pry could be on the hot seat if they go 0-3 and probably even fired immediately. So that's a good point that you made. I'm glad that you brought up Virginia Tech. That's an interesting case. I said that back on a few episodes back or whatever. I said that Virginia Tech was going to be a team that they really need to find a way to win some of these ball games, especially for Brent Pry's sake. So let's talk about the Big 12, and then we'll wrap up. Overrated and underrated.
Overrated. That's. This feels wrong because of let me just preface this by saying, Joel, I picked this before I saw the game on Saturday.
Yeah.
I want to make this. I picked this before I said the game on Saturday. I think it's Iowa State.
Yeah.
And Iowa State won the football game. I give them credit. You have one of the most underappreciated coaches of the last probably 20 years in Matt Campbell, and you have a culture builder. But I've worried about Rocco Becht since last season. I thought last year was a great litmus test of understanding what type of talent you have at other positions that can kind of save a quarterback from looking like the problem. You no longer have the two NFL wide receivers that currently are playing for the Houston Texans. You now have to show that you are the right leader in the locker room. And for all of the throws that he did make, there were a bunch of throws that he didn't make. And luckily, there were moments to where Avery Johnson and the offensive line and the overall identity of what was Matt Wells' unit was giving Iowa State chances to kind of make up for the mistakes that they made. But then also, they made far too many inconsistent plays in coverage. Right after they didn't give up, they got the fourth down stop. Iowa State scores. What happens on the very first play from scrimmage? They find Powell downfield for a 65-yard score. So it's like, those are the inconsistencies that if you don't fix them early on in the season, you're looking at when you face off against Iowa in 2 weeks in the Cy-Hawk Bowl, and that ends up being a recipe for disaster. That ends up being a moment where, oh my God, where is our team? What is the direction of our offense? Is our offensive line really good? Or was that more so just we got lucky in a very weird environment where we had to ask the officials to paint on the lines twice? That might just be it. But I think Iowa State's going to be a lot of people's favorites to be in the running for the Big 12 championship, and I think that they're going to be like a 7-5 team. It's not bad, but again, it's not what you expect for the culture that we have seen for the last 8 or 9 years from Matt Campbell.
Yeah. You're probably going to think I'm crazy for saying this. I had Iowa State winning the Big 12 championship.
There you go. Exactly.
I mean, everyone's talking about, Texas Tech or Arizona State or Kansas State, BYU. Man, I had Iowa. I'm pumping me through my veins for the Cyclones, man. I was all in. I'm still all in on Iowa State.
It's the Big 12. It can happen.
And then it could happen,
really
yeah.
This could be the worst game they have all year, and then they end up going 12-0.
Yeah. And they can just go undefeated and make the college football playoff. So I think they're properly rated. Overrated, give me Arizona State. I think Arizona State's going to be a good team. Don't get me wrong. Good team. I just don't think they're Big 12 championship worthy. Not this year. Underrated, I'm going to say Texas Tech. I will say Baylor and or TCU as well. I think TCU has a shot at breaking out as well. Sonny Dykes needs it. I think Josh Hoover is a very underappreciated quarterback as well. And I think he's going to be in really good command of that offense for the Horned Frogs. So give me TCU for underrated.
Again, you ever want me on your show, you know how to push the right buttons. TCU is the right answer. It is. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens on Monday.
Yeah.
Because remember, 2 years ago, TCU, coming off of a very successful season in the eyes of the public, got to play a game against a first-year coach that many people thought was in over his head. And he proceeded to pull off the upset, and then we got the quote, "Do you believe? Do you believe in Deion Sanders, and do you believe in Colorado?" Because remember how big of a moment that was in the sport. Well, now you get to welcome in Bill Belichick to college football. It's going to be in Chapel Hill, but again, you don't want to be embarrassed a second time if you're Sonny Dykes against a coach that has not worked at this high of a level. I don't think that they will. I like their defense. I think that there are some coaches out there that are never meant to become head coaches, but they're always going to be really good coordinators. That's Andy Avalos. I think Andy Avalos, as the defense coordinator, has done enough to where he is going to fix this unit and put them into a position where they're constantly going to be winning one-on-one battles. They're going to be better on third down execution, and they're going to put themselves in a position where the offense can strike. I think Josh Hoover, Haynes King is a lot of people's most underrated quarterback in college football. I don't think that that's possible anymore because of now how many people underrate him. He's actually probably properly rated. We don't talk about Josh Hoover, who had a phenomenal year last season. Like, people forget, he threw for just under 4,000 yards. I think it was like 3,950. So he was one of the almost highest returning passers from a season ago. And they still have talent at the wide receiver spot. They don't have Sabian Williams. They don't have Jack Besh. But they still have Eric McAllister, who I think is a really good outside option. The running back room is the only thing that really worries me. I don't know what we're going to get in it. In my opinion, it's the weakest running back room in the Big 12. But then you look at the schedule and you say to yourself, they have some games to where they feel pretty confident in matchups where they may be the underdog. They play Baylor at home. They play Iowa State at home. They get to welcome in Cincinnati. They get to play most of their easier road games on the road. So they feel like one of those teams that, because of where their schedule is and the matchups that we're going to be paying close attention to, they get Amon G. Carter in the background. They end up feeling more confident about the direction of where their team is, and they think that 9-3 is possible.
Well said. I mean, that's really all we got. Well said. Really quick before we wrap up, final bold takes or picks that you have for week 1.
Ooh, there will be one FCS team to beat a Power 4 team.
Okay.
I don't know who that is just yet. I think the one that I'm really intrigued with, and it's not take a shot at this program because I don't think that it's fair, because I did like the hire. But with how much new you have at West Virginia, welcoming in Duchesne, it just to me feels like this is a moment where your team is not going to be gelling enough together to where a team that feels like it's a top 25 roster at the FCS level is going to make this a battle. And like, if you play this game 2 or 3 weeks from now, you win by double digits. But it's just, they added in 52 new players this offseason. That's a lot. That's a ton when it comes to trying to build an identity of a team, and you haven't faced off against anybody but yourself in practice. It just doesn't add up well. We didn't see an upset last year between an FCS school and an FBS school. I feel like we're due. I really do. I don't think that we will see Stanford win a football game this year, and that pains me because they had the opportunity last week, and I think that was probably one of their best opportunities. There will be 4 head coaching openings in the SEC this year, whether it be because of firings or retirements or leaving the program on their own terms. And I think that you will see this season a 9-3 team make the college football playoff over a 10-2 team because they will pay attention to the strength of record and the strength of schedule.
Nice. Now it makes me curious to see who your 4 teams are for the SEC about the head coaching openings.
Oh, I'll just tell you. I think that. Wow, sorry, Blake.
No, you're good.
Auburn, I think fires Hugh Freeze.
Yeah.
I do. I think Diego Pavia, losing to him 4 times, is the nail in the coffin for Hugh Freeze. I think Sam Pittman steps down. I think that he ends up just not being the guy he wants to leave. And because of that, he doesn't get to 5-7, they let him step down, and that way they pay him a small little buyout. I think that we're either going to see Mark Stoops get fired, or they're going to pay, or he's going to leave on his own terms. And I don't think he would leave on his own terms, but what's really interesting is that people think that's crazy when you have as much money as Kentucky. I mean, with how much money that buyout is. What people don't realize is that when they were trying to buy out John Calipari, Calipari did them a solid by going and taking the Arkansas job. So the buyout only ended up being like $3.2 million. So all the money that they had been saving up to eventually go buy out their basketball coach and start fresh there, they haven't spent yet. So if they are able to get enough money put together this year, they may be willing to spring and get that buyout to hit the culture. Because what I had heard from a lot of people was, it wasn't the fact that he was a coach that people didn't think was, wasn't buying into the culture anymore. But when he took the job at Texas A&M, it soured a lot of people that then he said, I'm coming back. And there were a couple things behind closed doors. It wasn't just tech sags and the message boards. There was a bunch of other stuff that happened with it. But still, it felt like that people were kind of a little fed up that you really use this as a stepping stone program. And then when things didn't go your way, you said, okay, well, you expect me to take you back. And the locker room didn't respect it. And the coaching staff had a little bit of a problem with it. So I think that he's kind of lost the area to where it's kind of hard to win those people back for how much you've done with the program. And then I don't know what the last one is. What I will say is if somehow Jeff Lebby loses this weekend against Southern Miss, I think all bets are off. Because it's very easy to look at a program like Mississippi State and go, well, we knew that we were going to enter a rebuild. We knew it was going to be a long process. But you lost to two G5 teams. Yeah. And you lost to two G5 teams potentially by double digits. Oof. It doesn't matter what you do in conference play. These are games that, as part of the SEC, when we sign on the dotted line that we represent this conference, we believe that you should be here. You should be able to win these matchups. It doesn't matter how much of a rebuilding you do. And you lost to Toledo last year, and if you lose this game somehow, some way to Mississippi State, to Southern Miss, it's a very slippery slope if you don't get a couple of conference wins. So maybe it's that one. There's a theory of mine that, and I don't think it would happen, but like I remember hearing rumblings last year that Clark Lee was a favorite to land the job at North Carolina. And then they went with Bill Belichick. Yeah. I'm not saying that he would leave Nashville because that's a program that he has built. That's a program that he played for. It's a proud program. And I don't think that he's up for the job. I'm just going to make that abundantly clear. So anybody that clips this and says, Cole Thompson says that Vanderbilt is losing Clark, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying if he ends up doing it again this year and a job opens up that is willing to pay an increasingly amount to where either he is going to take less money to stay with Vanderbilt because of how prideful he is of the program, or Vanderbilt's not going to have the money to keep him around, so he's going to have to take that deal. I could see that being a scenario, especially if they end up going like 7-5 or 8-4 this year. I could see that being a sleeper.
Cole Thompson, ladies and gentlemen, from SEC Unfiltered. What a great episode! Thank you for joining us. That was awesome, man. That was I'm fired up. You got me ready for college football. And guys, that's all that we got for this special edition of Pigskin Frenzy today. A big thank you for taking some time out of your beautiful Wednesday afternoon. Did you sit back, watch, and listen to some college football coverage presented by me and the glorious Cole Thompson? If you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. Like each episode, leave comments down below. Spotify, Podbean, and Apple. Just share around with those and follow on there as well. The X and Instagram, those machines at Pigskin_Frenzy. Keep plugging into us on there. The website's www.pigskinfrenzy.weebly.com. Thank you for joining us again, Cole Thompson. Tomorrow is a beautiful Thursday afternoon, normal episode of Pigskin Frenzy. We have our week 1 preview and predictions. We're ready to rock and roll. We're probably going to get our guest picker on, our first ever guest picker for Pigskin Frenzy games. Savannah Tujay, daughter of Garrett Tujay, for NC State O-line coach, is coming on the show to pick week 1 Pigskin Frenzy games with us. Those games are, as I said, I was going to announce them: Alabama at Florida State, Notre Dame at Miami, LSU at Clemson, and Texas at Ohio State. Can't wait to do those and cover those, and we're going to rock and roll. We're here for college football. We're fired up, and we're ready to go. Guys, we love you all. We're praying for you all. That's Cole Thompson from SEC Unfiltered. I'm Joel Norris. We're signing off. For everybody out there, please and always stay the course.